call this meeting of the Johnson City City Commission to order for this Thursday, February the 3rd. We're meeting at 6 p.m. in the Commission chambers of the Municipal and Safety Building. It is my pleasure and privilege to call upon our friend and Pastor Lester Lattany to come and bring our invocation, so if everyone will please stand.
Let us go to our God in prayer. Eternal and all-wise God, our Heavenly Father, we come to you in the holy, precious, and divine name of Jesus Christ. And God, we thank you for a new day. Not only a new day, dear God, but a new mercy. You've allowed us that we might be able to come in this commission chamber in your presence. And we pray, dear God, that as we pray for our world, for our nation, our state, and our community, as we still reel from this COVID pandemic, knowing, dear God, because you are the divine healer, that we can lean on you, we can trust you, and we can depend upon you. But God, we thank you for the answer and for the solution to every circumstance and situation that we face. For you declared unto us, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, I will hear from heaven and heal their land. So as you have gathered this elected body together, we pray, God, that the order of the evening will be people and not politics. Purpose, so that we might be able to do that which is best for the city of Johnson City. We glorify you, we honor you, and we bless your precious name. We pray that all that is done will be done in order, asking for your guidance, asking for your direction, so that at the end of the day, we might be able to rest and hear you say that we have done what thus saith the Lord. God, now God, and keep these deliberations in accordance with your Holy Spirit plan. For it's in the divine name of Christ that we pray. Amen.
Amen. If you'll turn and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item of business is the approval of the minutes from our previous meeting on January the 20th. Are there any modifications needed or a motion to approve?
Move for approval.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. Next item on our agenda is a proclamation in presentation of support of Black History Month. So I'll come down with that. Reading from the proclamation, whereas our nation is strong and vibrant thanks to the creativity, fortitude, and resilience of people from every nationality and every background. And whereas we owe the study of Black history and the celebration of Black History Month to the efforts of Dr. Carter Goodwin Woodson, born in 1875 in New Canton, Virginia, and the son of former slaves. Whereas the son of former slaves, Dr. Woodson was educated at Berea College in Kentucky and earned his bachelor's degree and master's degree, earned his bachelor's and master's degrees at the University of Chicago, his PhD at Harvard, and studied at the Sorbonne in Paris, France. And whereas in 1915, Dr. Woodson founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, and whereas in 1926, he initiated the annual observance of Negro History Week in February during the birthdays of President Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, and whereas this annual event expanded into a month-long observance in 1976, known today as Black History Month. Now, therefore, I, Joe Wise, the mayor of Johnson City, Tennessee, in conjunction with the national observance, do hereby proclaim February 2020 as Black History Month. present that to you. Mr. Greenlee?
Well, we're observing Black History Month, and we observe it about every day, but this is a special month that we're doing some things for people that have come through our community. We're having, on the 24th of February, we're having a Black History Month program. It's called A Taste of Our Community. And we're honoring all the professionals, Black professionals and businesses in our community. We want to know what they do and how they do it and when they do it. And that's important to our community as a whole. And we also having tomorrow night at Science Hill High School, we're having a throwback night. Langston versus Douglas. It's Science Hill versus Kingsport. So we're doing a throwback night. And we're going to honor some Langston people. From 1954 to 55, boys and girls team. The last team at Langston was 1964-65 team. We're honoring them. And there's some great people there that played at Langston. And coach, that was coached by Halton Williams, William Coatney, and Paul Crispin, and Ted Hartzall. So it was they had Billy Williams. He was the last of the Fabulous Five in 1954-55. But also we're doing on the 27th, Sunday the 27th from 3 to 5, we're going to honor and have a Remembrance Day for Langston. The schools that fed into Langston, like Dunbar, which is Grace Temple Eternal Life Center, Douglas, which is Rise Up after school program, and Booker T. Washington from Jonesboro, that's the McKinney Center. So we're going to honor those people and have some memorabilia there and let them people bring stuff back to let us see and try to catalog all the people that lived in Johnson City that had descendants from Langston. That's important that we know who was there and how our history started. Because some of our history started with the guy that was the mayor. He was a church leader. He was a commissioner back in the 1800s. And Dr. Hezekiah Hankel, y'all know him. His name is on the health department. But he was a man. He served. He was a doctor and had the cholera pandemic of the 1800s. He did. So it's a lot of history goes on that we don't need to hide it. We need to bring it to the forefront and let it be. Everybody has history in your family. It don't matter what color or what creed you are. It's history. And that's important to everybody, where you came from and where are you going. Well, I thank you.
Thank you. I think the next item on our agenda is a presentation from the folks with the Johnson City, Washington County Chamber of Commerce on their Young Professionals of Johnson City initiative. It's all right, you're not the first person who's encountered technical difficulties.
Slow, isn't it?
Oh, that. I promise you it's not going to be that long, this show. Okay. Well, can we pull up the one that was already in the...
Is that it?
It's already sent, because I can just update you on the few changes there were.
Help.
It's coming to help.
Well, as they transition, I'll share a little bit of history about the importance of today with respect to Black history. 152 years ago, on this very day of February 3rd, a very important decree was put into place affording persons of color the opportunity to be heard by way of voting in our national elections. In 1870, the 15th Amendment served as a paradigm shift and a beginning of Black voters all over our country. The 15th Amendment also opened the door for the first African American governmental leaders here in our land, and a seat at the table to represent all mankind. So that's a little bit of history about February 3rd.
Thank you. Little dance here or something to entertain.
Our thing's picking up a little bug or virus on the drive, so it's not gonna let it open up. Sorry.
Uh-oh.
That's it.
So you could describe the slides, sort of paint a picture with your words.
Well, seriously, I've been living this for 6 months now, so it's kind of my life at this point, so I can tell you all about it. But for those of you who have not already met, which I've met most of you, my name is Mackenzie Templeton. I was hired on by the Chamber on September 1st to be the Director of Young Professional Development. So I'm here today to tell you about our first update with young professionals of Johnson City and, what we've done so far, but where we're going most importantly. The first thing you would have noticed here is our branding, which was the first step we took when we started with this program. And we looked at other YP logos from across the country and came up with something that we thought would represent this group, and made sure all of that meshed with the logo that was both modern and professional. Another part of the research that we did was finding out what we wanted our pillars of the programming to be. We settled on connect, lead, and serve, which will be the three main topics that our programming falls under. And while we were doing this research and beginning to build our website, we started increasing our brand awareness on social media. Now, a few things to note about the numbers that you would have seen were that originally there was a group called YP that was founded in the region about 2016, I believe. And they dissipated last summer. So we got in contact with them, and they actually provided their contact list with us so that we were still able to re-engage their previous members. So we also acquired their Facebook page in the meantime, and we also created a LinkedIn and an Instagram to help support on those platforms as well. Those are growing by the month, and it's all been organic so far. So we're really excited to see, as our website is actually releasing next week, when we start putting some dollars behind that marketing, what that'll be able to do. And speaking of memberships, that is where the website is going to be coming into play. And that should launch by the 1st of next week. Like I said, hopefully we're working out some kinks right now to make sure that it's the best that it can be. We want to make sure that we start off on the right foot. And we wanted to make sure that it was cohesive with our brand and programming as well. Now, I did have that for you all to see tonight as well, but I can send that to you all after this as well. But like our brand and website, we wanted to make sure everything started off with research, and we did the same thing with our programming. We held a summit at the Millennium Center in January and also put out a survey for those that could not attend in person, and were able to collect about 120 responses from people who were going to be in the program. And from that, we were able to pull some data and find out that actually our most popular age category at this point are the upper 20s and lower 30s of who is most interested. And actually 60% of those have indicated that they'll be paying for this on their own, not from their employers. So we noticed that a lot of these think that it is that important to them that they're willing to pay for it themselves. And of course, when we put out our membership application, we're going to be collecting more detailed information so we're able to see what industries they're coming from, what their educational background is, where they're living, because they may not just be in Johnson City, and some other factors like that. Also coming from our survey, we were able to find out that actually 100% of respondents agreed on a price range between $50 and $100 annually. And I'm very happy to say we're able to offer all three of those membership tiers so that we're able to include as many people as possible. And then those membership fees will be based on whether their employer is a chamber member, and they'll also get a discount if they pay all up front at once, the annual membership versus paying monthly. We also have a membership tier where if they volunteer at 3 events during the year, it'll be a lowered cost at $50 so that they don't have to feel like that is such a huge expense up front. We also had a lot of people indicate that they felt like they would be more inclined to join if they were able to have some kind of skin in the game as far as what events were being offered. And we understood that if you're paying for it, you should be able to have some say in it. So we made sure they had all of the say. So in our survey, we asked what days work best for them, what time frames, what frequency of events, and what type of events they would like to have. We also had them give us ideas so that we'd be able to go off of that for several years to come. And actually this month, so what we have scheduled already is we're going to be having a YP morning breakfast networking. So that'll be happening at the end of the month. And they'll be able to come in and get breakfast and start the morning off right and be able to meet with other young professionals. We're also doing a social at Battle Axe inside of Quantum Leap so that they'll be able to sign up on the spot. We're going to have everything there ready for them and also be able to network that night as well. And this first month will be open to everyone, just trying to make sure everybody's aware that the website is launched and that they're able to start getting those memberships in, because we've been having events for several months now, but not been able to actually onboard them as members yet. And we're also going to be doing an event at Coalition for Kids. So one of our main pillars of programming is going to be service. So every month we're going to be visiting a nonprofit. So this month is Coalition for Kids, and we're going to be able to do crafts with the kids and also cupcake decorating after school. So, and in the future we're also going to be doing monthly professional development events. So we were not able to get anybody on the schedule for that this month, but starting in March we'll be having that monthly as well. And we're also doing a quarterly outdoor recreation event. So making sure that people are taking advantage of all the beauty we have here in the region as well. And some things we've heard more than anything is that young professionals want to use this group to make friends, make business connections, and get more involved in the community, which is crucial when it comes to attracting and retaining talent. A lot of people have emailed me and just said, hey, I'm coming in, I've got an internship at Eastman, and I know no one here, but I want to make friends, and I'm going to move to Johnson City. Or I'm coming from Dallas. I've heard a lot about you all, but I'm not going to know anyone when I get there. This seems like a good way to plug in. So we've already had a lot of really good feedback, and a lot of people have said they've already made connections, even at the events we had back at the end of the year. So. And outside of the investment from the city, we've also partnered with Eastman, Ballot Health, Summit Leadership, ETSU Research Corporation, Eastman Credit Union, Ripple University, and as of yesterday, Tennessee Hills, to keep making sure that these people are getting plugged in to all of that we have here in the area and being able to meet some of the movers and shakers. Now, in the first quarter, we have spent $25,000 on young professionals of Johnson City, which was matched by the Chamber. Half of this went to create the solid foundation for the program, and which was that branding, the website, marketing, things of that nature. The remainder went on to the events we've already had, software, sponsorship of a similar program at ETSU that we're hoping will kind of be able to feed into this program as well and better connect us to the university. And also get some equipment like a camera and iPad for the events as well to make sure we're able to sign people up and be able to record all that we're doing at the events. So now that you've heard about young professionals, I want to talk to you about Intro JC and coming home. So this is what had changed that I would have indicated in the PowerPoint. And I know I've mentioned research a lot, but it is so crucial in navigating some of these things, especially in the way that things are nowadays where everything's kind of up in the air. So we want to make sure that we know what people want before we start. So we started talking about Intro JC. And even at the summit, we had some conversation around it. And our original model of having an in-person sort of workshop that taught people about what Johnson City was not as well received as we expected. And a lot of that's in light of COVID. A lot of people like things being virtual. It's very accessible. So a lot of people indicated that they would like kind of a virtual walkthrough of different aspects of the city. Maybe you have some videos focused on what events are going on, some about different industries, and things of that nature. And so this way it also becomes more effective. Where originally we could have had a group come in the fall of maybe 30 people. With these videos, we're able to reach a limitless amount of people. And be able to share these online as well and reach people not just already here in Johnson City, but those from outside of the region as well. And then moving on, we're also, with the Coming Home campaign, have decided to kind of expand that as well after listening to some of the new residents we've had coming into the chamber. A lot of people have indicated that when they've moved to Johnson City, it's not been the most seamless experience. So we have developed a website called Move to Johnson City, which Kingsport and Bristol previously had as well, and it was something we've been needing for a while. As a way to unify some of the resources we already have, connecting Visit JC, what the city has going on, what they need to do with the state when they move here, and keeping it all in one location so that when they're here, like when I moved here back in the fall, you're able to find everything and transition into Johnson City very easily. So we're working on that, and then Coming Home will be a 5-year campaign that will be ran through that. Each year we'll have a different theme, but the focus will be around new marketing for that, and it'll be pushed out to residents. We'll be able to use some research and some data from ETSU to even get some past students. They're outside the region. We've got some of that data we can plug into, and then targeting people from similar markets as well that have been moving here as far as like Asheville, Charlotte, and things of that nature. So And then after the campaign runs for 5 years, of course, the website will stay static at that point and continue to update and just continue to be a resource for our new residents. So Intro JC will serve both new and current residents. So we're able to keep attracting all these people, and young professionals as well be able to serve all of our new talents. So overall, all 3 of these initiatives will benefit our current residents as well as our new ones and allow everyone to get more involved in the community and better acquainted with everything that we already have here. So thank you all.
Will you entertain questions?
Go right ahead.
Are there questions for Mackenzie?
Mackenzie, thank you so much. I mean, you punted there, and you did a really great job of doing it. You think on your feet, so very, very impressed. I really like the idea of the videos. Are some already made, or are these going to be made?
Going to be made.
Okay.
So we're in the process of finding someone who will be able to come on board as kind of a full-time videographer and be able to do some of this. And not only will it be a way also for the chamber to highlight some of the existing businesses that we have here, but also, like I said, be able to, you know, if we could do one that was just a showcase on a specific industry and show a variety, things of that nature. And the plan is to have a playlist on the website so that once they watch one, they'll be able to watch more and kind of get hooked at that point. But yes, we are working on that as we speak, and we've actually had applications already starting to roll in, so we think we can onboard someone pretty quick for
Well,
that.
I would hope, and I'm looking at Keisha in the back of the room here, that we could have a great video from the city too, to welcome people to come visit or move here, yeah.
Yeah.
Are there other questions for Mackenzie?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Good luck.
Thank
Keep
you.
it up. All right. I'm going to suggest we deviate from the agenda only slightly because we have a couple more presentations coming that I think are going to take some time, and immediately following are a couple permitting applications that will take just a brief couple of minutes. And so if it's all right, we'll put on hold the next 2 presentations and jump to 5.1, which is to consider approval of a temporary occasion license for the Overmountain chapter of Trout Unlimited. If you'll approach the podium. Are there any staff reports, Ms. Ball, that need to be taken into account on this? Do you want to tell us about your temporary occasion license, please?
Yep, so this permit, this temporary occasion license is for a beer permit for the Thirsty Orange Brew Extravaganza. It's usually held every year in April over at the Founders Park Pavilion. Last year, because of COVID, we had to push it out till the August timeframe. But I believe this is the 9th year we've had it. I'm with the Overmountain chapter of Trout Unlimited. Superfly Fabulous Production puts on the event, and we're the nonprofit to get it and help them out with everything. So,
All right. Have you read the rules and regulations concerning the sale of alcohol in the city?
yes, sir.
And do you agree to abide by them?
Yes, sir.
All right. Are there questions for the applicant?
Move for approval.
We have a motion. Will you be a second? We have a
love it.
motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. Do you want to say anything else by way of promotion for your event?
No,
Kinda
tickets, tickets should go and sell in the next couple of weeks. You'll see some flyers coming out and also some emails around the area. So,
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Good luck.
Next item is consideration of a beer license application for M&M Hotels Management LLC, doing business as the Staybridge Suites. If you'll approach the podium, give your name and address. I think I forgot to do that.
Hello,
Hello.
I'm Angela Garber with the general manager of the Staybridge Suites. We're located at 10 Mark Twain Court, which is up right behind the Sonic. We opened in 2020.
Are there any staff reports relevant to this? With that, have you read the rules and regulations concerning the sale of alcohol inside the city?
Yes, I have.
And do you agree to abide by them?
Yes, I do.
All right. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
We have a motion to approve and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Now we'll move back to presentations, and that brings us to a presentation on the Keefauver Farm Master Plan. And I just want to add something to Herb Greenlee's comments earlier about Dr. Hezekiah Hinkle. Not only was he an alderman, a physician, an educator, he was ordained to the Christian ministry at the Boones Creek Christian Church, which is a stone's throw from the Keefauver farm. So we'll link those two otherwise seemingly separate items on our agenda with that tidbit of knowledge. So Mr. Stahl.
Mayor, Commissioners, with us tonight, we have Jim Ford of McGill and Associates, who you retained last year to develop a master plan for the Keefauver farm property, which each of you know we purchased 2009, I believe it was, from the Keefauver family for the development of a public park. And this park has been dedicated to outdoor recreation. And upon retaining the firm, McGill and Associates, we also initiated a community survey to get public input on features for this park. We also had 2 public meetings, publicly advertised meetings. One was at the Keefauver farm, and the Boones Creek Historical Trust was very generous in allowing us to use their property to have that first meeting. We also had a subsequent meeting at the Memorial Park Community Center where we received public input. City commissioners were present, park board members were present, and obviously citizens from across the street, and the Boones Creek Trust were present, and we received a variety of input from the community survey. So from that, we have 3 concept plans, preliminary plans that have been developed. We're going to have a presentation on those plans. With your input, this will result in the development of a final master plan to obviously be presented, and that plan will hopefully lead to funding for the development of the park at some time in the future. So with that, we have, again, Jim Ford from McGill and Associates, and he has a PowerPoint for you.
Does he really, though? Does he really have a bucket?
Let's see if technology will hold out. All right. Great. So as Charlie explained, I'm Jim Ford from McGill Associates, and Mayor, Commissioners, thanks for the opportunity. I know you all were part of some of the input we received. We received the survey information, public input, and with that, we've devised 3 concepts. These aren't final concepts by any means, but it's where we're at with the input we've received for the Keefauver Farm Park. I'm going to go through this very quickly and then get to the concepts. The site, it's a beautiful site. You're all familiar with Keefauver Farm. Some of the notable features of this existing site, of course, we know we've got Boones Creek, the Museum and Opry is there now. People are coming to the site, but the park site surrounding that includes the stream, the barn, the silos, the iconic silos that everybody is familiar with. Of course, the fields, the pasture, the wooded nature, that ridge line. These are some of the things you would see if you were there. During those 2 community meetings, we had a visual preference survey. So what we did was we had 2 boards with a number of different images that represented different amenities. And when people would interact with us, we would ask them, you've got 3 choices. What are your top 3 favorite images of what you would think would work on this site? Okay, so it was limited to that site and their opinions. In order, the top 5 there, you see we've got hiking trails, of course, restroom facilities, picnic pavilion, interactive stream feature, and the paved paths. You'll see the order for the rest of those, and something they all had in common, those are passive type activities, which lends itself to a nice wooded, beautiful site such as this. So with that input, we also looked at what we got from the survey. And I won't go through the city survey question by question, but I would like to take the point to say you had 930 people get online and take that survey, whether they found out at the community meetings or online via your website. That represented roughly 1,839 individuals. How that works is that you took the survey for your family, and so you were considering your family members as well. Some of the key findings, the city had this question on here about what would be some of those top amenities you would like to see at this site. The top 5, of course, restroom facilities. We know how important that is if we have families, but walking trails, running trails, open green space, bicycle trails, an inclusive natural playground. Now, those also include those other items there, disc golf, et cetera. And there was a question on there that was open-ended. If you didn't see something you wanted to see, what would you like to see? And it really ranged from cat parks to, a number of different small things, not any numbers that competed with the general choices people provided. Major themes that would shape the vision for any park out there. Something to consider, it was mentioned today, history. How important is it that we have some great history in the area? This site is no different. the agriculture that has existed on this site when it was a farm. It's lent itself to the culture and the community around the park. The natural site features, like I mentioned before, the rocks, the woods, the stream, the pond, and the surrounding community. We know the area is growing. There's a lot of residential communities, houses, building, all around the site. With that, we will jump into the concepts. And the way this will work is I'll show you an overall the concept. You may have a picture of it in front of you if it's hard to see on this. But then we'll go into a little bit about what's on each of these concepts. So in concept number 1, you'll notice there are yellow lines. Those are trails. Okay? We've got orange. Those are buildings. You've got the pond there in the center. Now, coming to the site, one of the big things that you're going to note on all 3 of these concepts is parking. You have to have parking when you're inviting people over, right? So we've got those areas in gray, 75 spaces up at the top of the site, an additional 34 at the mid part of the site. You'll notice 3 white dots over in that area where you see the most development. Those are those existing silos. And while we don't know the exact condition of those silos yet, and that needs to be determined, they're certainly iconic. And there's something that, if could be saved, I think would be a valuable asset to any sort of recreational facility out here. People identify with it, so it's something that should be retained. The 2 large circles that you see just south of that, those are playground areas. You know, looking at the survey results and in the community meetings, people wanted to see some sort of play area. What that looks like and who exactly that would serve is yet to be determined, but from a conceptual point of view, you want that close to your parking. You know, my wife with the stroller is not going to go very far. She wants to be able to get to the playground right after she gets out of the car. That being said, you've got a picnic shelter and a pavilion with restrooms built in. We all know when we go to the park, you've got kids, you want to have a place to use the restroom. It needs to be close by. An adventure play area was one of those items that was mentioned a lot in the community meeting and the survey. That's that green area just south of the 2 playground areas. Now, there is an existing stream that would need to be cleaned up. It's a beautiful spot. I mean, if you've ever been out there, you would know this is something you want to keep. That blue line leading to the pond, that's the stream. You can envision small shelters, benches, et cetera, around that area, a contemplative spot. A spot to go and enjoy what the place really is, as unique and beautiful as it is. That being said, you know, the pond itself offers the opportunity to have fishing, observation of wildlife, et cetera. A dock would allow you to access the water. Just south and on the side of the property, you'll notice a small enlarged dog park area. You know, there's one of those trending activities you're seeing all across the country, especially in the South. These growing cities, people have gotten a lot of dogs. If you've ever seen PetSmart or any of those, you'll know that's a big activity. This site does show a place for dog park. What that would look like and whether you would do that at the beginning or not is yet to be determined. That being said, the trails are the main features along with the open space. This site, this design wouldn't limit you in the future to being able to hold, say, a cross-country meet, a walking event, et cetera. But you'll know along that trail, disc golf, that's one of those items that came out of not only the community input, but it was one of those sub-10 things that was important. And if you didn't see it listed, disc golf was important to people. So it's added to this concept. Just to go a little bit closer on what some of these might look like, if you retain the barn's going to probably need to be updated. You know, more than just a fresh coat of paint. I think there's opportunities here to use that space now for storage, to be able to use that for an additional area for restrooms, and to have some classroom space. You know, agriculture being important, you've got to be able to instruct people, teach people the history and the points about agriculture. You could do that in this space. A playground tot lot, what would that look like? I think theming that to match the Keefauver farm park theme could allow you to be able to use certain elements, such as what you see in those pictures in the middle. The adventure playground, that's natural materials. Moving on, walking trails. We've all walked on walking trails. You've got some great ones in the city now. Disc golf, how that would look, and of course, the fishing observation dock. One of the things that we got from the community input was the need to have pollinator gardens. A lot of people want to be able to bring the bees, bring the butterflies, et cetera. That's what the pollinator gardens are. While we haven't yet determined what the architectural theme would be on any elements of the farm park, you certainly have some examples, such as sort of a rugged wooded look. Maintenance building, you're going to need a maintenance building when you've got a park. That's what that is in the parking lot there. It doesn't have to be a huge scale, but certainly something that would fit the theme and aesthetically fit in with whatever goes there, considering the area is so beautiful, you wouldn't want to detract from that. That natural stream play area allows people to actually get up close and interact with that water. The dog park, a lot of fun. Moving on to concept 2, and if I'm going too fast, let me know. I'll slow down, but I know we have questions coming afterwards. So, the second concept is it's a little bit more spread out. It's got this radial design around those key silos, that iconic silo in the middle. Around it, you've got some parking, a farmer's market, something where there's a parking lot adjacent to it. We can actually hold a small event there. People can back their trucks up, and you can do that as an additional programming element. Let's move on. Farmer's market, playground. Again, that theme of the farm came out not just in the survey, but in those community meetings. People really felt like that should be incorporated into any design here. You'll notice also that this has more trails cutting in and through across, dividing that green space up. Something to consider. Pollinator Gardens, small picnic shelters, amphitheater. You'll note at the bottom of this, the observation deck. Let me go back here and show you what I'm talking about. That ridge line does offer the opportunity to get up high and have a different view than the rest of the park. So having a trail that could lead you up there, might be a natural surface trail, might be a paved trail, depends on what the survey comes out to show. But certainly getting people up there to experience that is something important. This option also offers this amphitheater. Now, while you might say, well, you know, we've got the Opry there, they've got music, et cetera. Well, what about outdoor events? You know, what about doing something where you bring people out for a classroom? This could serve as an outdoor classroom as well. But surrounding that, an orchard. You know, it could be fruit, it could be nut trees, et cetera, but it's about bringing that sense of agriculture into the design. It's not just about pollinator gardens anymore. Now it's about the trees. It's about what does it look like. It fits in with that theme. Fishing docks, a trellis walkway, you know, with that radial design, there's a lot of creative shapes and lines. But both of these concepts, you'll notice, they move the development up to one area of the park. The whole idea being is that it opens the rest of that space up, for the views, those fields people said they appreciated, but the ability to have event space in the future if you ever need to do that. You know, and certainly overflow parking, you'll notice at the top left of this image. You know, there's an area over on that other side of the Opry that could be opened up if you ever need overflow parking. Concept 3 is sort of an amalgam of 1 and 2. You know, there was a lot of elements we know people want to see at the site, but how you lay those out. You know, option 3 gives you the ability it's kind of small. You know, it's sort of the same things, but spread out. Not so many paths, not so much pavement. And certainly, again, keeping that open space idea. This does, however, include one element different than the others, demonstration barn. You know, what is a demonstration barn? Well, imagine the Keelan barn you've got now. It's being used for storage, there's restrooms, there's classrooms, but a demonstration barn is where my 4-H'ers go. Right? My wife's in 4-H. Yeah, she grew up doing that. Have a space that you can open the whole barn up. Could it be an event space for a wedding in the future? Possibly. But having that demonstration barn is something to consider. What that looks like here. Fitness stations, something that I was just sharing. You know, having fitness stations is important because all of our doctors are telling us, hey, you need to get out, you need to move more. But how do you do that? Go to a gym? I don't feel comfortable going to a gym right now. I might be more inclined to go to a fitness station at a park, you know, and allow people to lose those calories they've been wanting to do. Of course, the dog park. And with that, I hope I didn't go too fast, but I'd like to open it up for you guys to ask questions.
Are there questions?
Of course.
Right.
Jim, I didn't see a lot of trail development up on the ridge line. Could you comment on that?
Well, we do
or
have a
what the
concept on
concept
that.
was?
Let me go back to concept
I
1.
think on 1, there was one that went up there.
Right. So this is a long space. So you can imagine that is quite a bit of trail. You may not be able to see it from there, but they have it in front of them on the paper. There's both natural surface trails that could cut up and down that ridge, which is a very steep ridge, by the way. But at the top of the ridge and at the bottom of the ridge, you would have paved trails to access that.
Do you know how long the trail system
Yes.
is?
So in this particular trail system, I should have it up there. That's 1.8 miles, not including the natural surface trails. Of course, you don't know where you're going to put your natural surface trail. It would depend on the
And
topography.
that includes the trail system within
Yes,
the...
all the yellow.
Okay.
Yeah, in option 2, it's a little over 2 miles.
I know there's some small, I'm sorry. I know that there were some suggestions of some small pavilions.
Right.
What's the idea, the concept in terms of a larger pavilion? Let's say we had a company that wanted to have their employee picnic out there.
Exactly. You know, you see this pavilion restroom area and/or the demonstration barn and that other option. These big open spaces where if we had a meet of some sort, that's where you're giving out your awards. That's where the large family comes and does the family reunion. That's where the classes gather, you know, before they're sent off on their field trip. So these large pavilion spaces are really important to how these kind of parks are going to be used in the future.
On the pond, is there a reason why there was one, not more, or larger decks?
Yeah,
proposed?
so you'll notice in this concept, you do have one. Of course, it's a small wooden deck, so we could put them where they would need to be. This particular option, and I came up with this idea, if you're standing in that spot and you're looking out over the pond, there's a framed view just between the trees and over the pond at the field. So this is more about aesthetics. That being said, if a lot of people wanted to use that, you would know you might need to add another one, and option 2 does show that, additional decks. It's a nice pond. It's not a huge pond, but it is large enough. People are going to want to get in there and fish and, you know.
Yes, I have a question. Thank you for your presentation, by the way. I can see you've put a lot of work into this. I see the consistency of open spaces in concept 1, 2, and 3, whereas concept 1 and 3, concept 1 and 3 both have dog parks. But concept 2 doesn't.
Right.
Can you talk about the reasoning you
Okay,
chose
so-
to put dog parks in
absolutely.
1 and 3 and not 2?
Well, we wanted to make sure you had options that showed both it there and not there. I think dog parks are important. That being said, the community has said that in the public survey. You haven't seen a lot of it, but it is present. And I think it's something that's going to grow into the future. What you really want to do with any of these concepts is be able to have the space allocated for something like that, if indeed you decide to go that way. You have an existing dog park now. You would have to look at how it's being used and what people, you know, are saying about that before you definitely commit to something that wasn't in that top tier of things people asked for. But certainly you've got it. You've got residential areas.
The control room is losing their minds right now because you're not talking into the
Oh,
microphone.
okay. Sorry about that.
I mean, I can see that,
Yeah.
just so you know.
Right. So what you really want to do with any of these is be able to preserve space for programming in the future. Right now, we know it's huge and it's trending. You have residential areas all around you. People are going to be there with dogs, okay? Whether or not they're allowed to just run free or have a space allocated for that activity, that's really the decision. You do have it in 1 and 3, as you pointed out, but 2, because it doesn't necessarily have to be there. It wasn't one of the top things, but it's certainly something that people talked about.
So what about lighting?
Yes.
Is there lighting, or is the
Absolutely.
concept to not have lighting, especially the further out you go from the main area, like the walking trail? Is there some sort of lighting for that?
Yeah.
Or is the hours of operation proposed to be, you know, dusk to dawn or something?
Well, you know, like with all your parks, you're going to have opening, you're going to have hours, you're going to have security, you're going to have lighting. What that looks like at the conceptual level, we know it's important. We know that to be responsible, we should have something like that. What it looks like at this point, you'd have to wait and see. I mean, until you've determined exactly which concept you want, you know, what those hours would be, what the programming is going to be. It could be more intensive in certain areas and certainly just for security in other areas.
What's a demonstration garden?
Demonstration garden, fantastic. And I had a picture up there, but I won't.
That's what I'll
torture you.
volunteer for when I'm done doing this.
So as you know what a community garden is. We know we have the garden club, or we have neighbors that come and they want to have a space to be able to grow what they want to grow, right? But a demonstration garden is a little different. You know, being a master gardener, I can tell you that a demonstration garden is an opportunity for me to be able to share the skills of gardening, of growing. You know, how important are pollinators? What is a pollinator? To be able to have a small space that's well cared for. And usually you have a responsible party. That's what makes those successful. It's somebody from your 4-H, it's a master gardener, it's a school. It's that space allocated for that type of programming. Not saying who's going to do it, but that's what that would be used for.
Jim, we have, I think, the Boones Creek Historical Trust has 2 acres, and then we have 52 acres remaining, is that correct? Concept 2 particularly pushes a lot of the density all up in the same area, so You know, some of my concerns a little bit is that, you know, we don't kind of encroach on what they're doing there with a lot of noise and playgrounds and all that kind of thing, that how we can spread this out in a way that, you know, makes the best use of the topography for sure. And I know that's a consideration on some things. Easy access to parking, and parking, easy access to the amenities as well. So I'm just making that as an observation, that we want to, you know, respect
Absolutely.
what they're doing there. And the interesting thing is going to be, like, a lot of their activity is in the evening, on Saturday evenings with the Opry. But of course, people come to the museum to go through it in a more serene kind of atmosphere. So
Right.
anyway, that's just an observation. We seem to be all kind of pushing right up there to that surrounding what's going on right now. I'd like to see it spread out a little bit more.
Other questions or comments?
If I could add one other thing, is these aren't the only concepts. While you might pick one of these concepts, I think you may also like certain elements of each that could culminate into a final concept.
So with this presentation, I guess my question is, what's the next step? Are we picking tonight, or?
Don't ask me.
We're gonna have another meeting?
Let's ask Charlie Stahl. He's the guy with the answers.
I'm not ready to pick.
I would recommend the next step or steps would be to, as Jim suggested, I think you have three concepts and they're preliminary. Obviously, you have a lot to weigh as far as in some of the comments you made, you know, how close to Boones Creek Trust, you know, convenience, and even phase programming. As you know, and I'm not suggesting this, but, you know, some of our park systems have all had master plans. And some of those plans have been essentially phased in over the years. You establish a park, but all the elements didn't come overnight. And you know, obviously, when there's a final master plan presented, there'll be an estimate of probable cost. So you're gonna have something to work with on what this will cost you. But I would recommend, and there's a couple ways to do this, and one would be, you know, you can collectively or individually, you know, essentially, you know, make suggestions about what should be in this park toward the final master plan. You can bring back McGill into a work session and you know, pick their brains right there in front of you and offer essentially the final elements that would comprise the final master plan. This ultimately, you know, again, it's had community input, it's had Boones Creek Trust input, it's had park board input, it's had neighborhood input, but ultimately this is taking all that information. This is going to be your ultimate decision, what will be in the final. And this is not inconsistent with past commissions. The same process was pretty much done, where a public presentation on concepts, but the commission ultimately directed a final master plan, and that's memorialized in a document with an estimate of cost to hopefully soon rather than later, but when they fund the development of the future park.
So tonight, we're just being presented with the results of the study and the three concept plans. They're very high level. You could pick and choose and pull a dog park from this one and a play area from that one and so forth. What is the path forward for when that kind of design by committee will be advanced? I mean, where do we do that? Where does that happen?
Well, it could happen in a work session here. I think you know, while it may be easy to suggest, hey, at 2 weeks from now, at another commission meeting, you provide such direction. I'm not so sure if that's possible. I don't know if your other business will allow for that. So a work session maybe where you just sit down, look at these concepts, and decide to offer what should be in the final concept plan that McGill can move forward with. And obviously, you have some suggestion here tonight. Feel free to suggest that.
I would think that we are close enough now, depending on the input that we would receive from you, to be able to wrap it up by the end of the month. There's a written document that goes along with this that has a bit more background information on the site, certainly how we came up with the concepts and what that final concept is. With that, I'd be able to give you a conceptual cost estimate. That's really where you want to go with this. You want to know what is it we want to build and what's it going to cost, right? So in order to get you to that point, we would need your input in the form of either a work session or some other way that you determine. But my goal is to try to wrap this up as soon as we can, because the information's fresh, the input's fresh, the concepts are fresh.
Yeah, and I think, of the three, I see things that appeal to me in concept one, which doesn't mean I'm voting for one over
Right.
2 and 3. I would echo the concern about crowding the historic trust, but at the same time, I would also recognize there's a distinct possibility that the public investment in the 50-some acres that we own could supplement or favorably augment what they're doing too. I mean, depending on where you put the parking, depending on if you did an amphitheater, there may be scenarios where it's actually appealing to them. And so I think between now and that eventual conversation, it'd be helpful to hear from the Historic Trust folks feedback on things you do and don't like, or things you think are opportunities, or things that you think are potential liabilities, so that we are actually working in an effective partnership. I think there is some value to theming it, I think this needs to feel rural and agrarian. I mean, it still needs to look like a farm on some level when it's done, so that all those other elements still make sense.
Jim, I have one more technical question. You mentioned we need to clean up the creek and, of course, the pond. I've been out there, I've seen the pond as well. Is that something we'll have to get environmental permits and?
That would be a good question.
Are we going to be able to
Charlie, yeah.
touch it?
We would have our environmental manager first and foremost evaluate it, and certainly from there, if there's a need to move forward with some assessment or remediation in some cases as far as improvements. Obviously, let's face it. Right now, it's still used for cattle. So once cattle is removed from the site, there'll be some natural improvements anyhow. But that's where our environmental folks, in-house folks, will be of assistance to us on that.
Are there other questions on the presentation?
I guess my final question to us is, once we get together and have a workshop and decide on some of the elements of this, then there's a design phase that we would have to fund, correct?
Right.
Okay. So how long would that design phase take? Because we're entering the budget process here very, very soon. And so I feel like we need to get some of this stuff.
Are you asking so that we would have numbers to budget for FY23?
Well, it may just be funding the design
Oh, okay.
phase of it, yeah.
Depending on what that concept ends up looking like, it's generally, something we can do within 30 to 60 days.
Do we have an idea of when we might do this workshop? If we're going to do this by the end of the month, it doesn't need to be a long time from now.
We already have a workshop scheduled for the afternoon prior to our next meeting, and I think we have a couple other prospective things floating out there that aren't on a calendar yet. We probably should compare notes after the meeting. I think we can find a time to do a workshop. It's just, we would need to confer to make sure we aren't stepping on some other date that's already kind of at least written on a calendar in pencil.
And I'm wondering, and Charlie may help me answer this, if we looked at doing, because we are slated to do at the work session on the 17th, we were looking at doing some financing stuff around capital projects and talking about money that we need to borrow in bonds, and update on the West Walnut Street project, as well as the park project that we're doing as well, and then looking at some other projects. So, and then also looking at the ARPA funding options. And I imagine right now, looking at that agenda, that will take the full 2 hours to do. But we could look at doing it the following meeting, which would be the first meeting in March.
Okay. We'll work it out and float, but it can certainly happen within the next month, I would think. Is that a fair place to leave it for now?
Yes, my hope would be, based on the feedback, Jim, that you've gotten today, that we would be able to take and revise these concepts based on that, and then come back with something a little tighter, where we may narrow it down, the options down, and make it a little bit tighter in terms of what you want to see happen at that meeting.
Thank you very much. If there's nothing further, we'll move on to our next presentation, which is, and this one's exciting. Just buckle up, people. It's time for the audit presentation from Blackburn, Childers, and Steagall. People come every year just for this meeting.
Oh, they're getting up.
They're leaving, wait.
Whoa, people, this is the.
Feel free to go. I do have just some little handouts I would like to give you that will make this go a little faster. So I'm gonna just pass.
Fencing our
these out.
311 pages of audit.
I don't think you want to go
It's
through
all
the whole
311.
report, so we'll just speed it up a little bit this way.
Thank you.
Reader's Digest version. As always, we do appreciate the opportunity to present this. We appreciate the opportunity to work with the city and to do the audit. We especially appreciate the fact that the board is so involved and pays attention to these things. Some of the things that came up in the audit, she's already mentioned, the funding that you have from the ARPA grant that you need to with. So I appreciate your all's diligence in that, especially thank Janet and all of her team for the hard work they've done. The last 2 years have been very difficult with trying to do so much of the work remotely. She very generously has sent us electronically everything we needed, or even allowed us to come one at a time down and look at records when we needed to physically. And I just really appreciate their cooperation and having everything as ready for us as they did. It makes things go so much smoother and means that you have a good, clean audit report again, which is what you really want to get. First off, I would like to point out this certification that you get, the GFOA certification. You've had it now for 20 consecutive years. Janet was instrumental in getting it the first year. She's made sure that you haven't lost it, and there's a lot involved in doing that. That's why the report's as big as it is, Joe. I'm sorry, but it's, there's a lot that they require before they're going to give you that certification. So I appreciate her help in that. The opinion letter, as I said, is a clean opinion. If you have looked at it, you might notice that there's some things that are a little bit different in this year. One of the things is that the Governmental Accounting Standards Board just cannot resist making updates and changes every year. So we did have a new one to implement. This one meant that you had to include all of the internal school activity funds of the city in this report. I don't think it's really helpful information to you, but that's my own personal opinion. We put it in there, we've disclosed it, we've explained where it is and why it is. It shows up as a non-major governmental fund. It's all in one place, but it's basically the funds that Science Hill and all of your schools have. So the beginning balance that they brought in was $1,247,000, and we showed the total activities of those, not as individual schools, but as one non-major fund of the schools. And so that does change some of your balances. If you see a prior period adjustment, that's what it was just to bring that in to comply with the change in accounting principles.
Does that include their booster clubs? Is that what this money is?
No,
Okay.
that is actually why the standard was developed, because of the Governmental Accounting Standards Board feeling like booster clubs and PTAs and things like that weren't being audited and they needed to be looked at. But then it didn't go that direction and pull them in. It just ended up pulling in the internal school activity funds, which were already being audited. So didn't accomplish the goal that was set out for the problem. But that's what triggered them looking at it to start with. Okay, so moving on, just with your summary here, if you don't want to read anything else in it, I would encourage you to read pages 4 through 15, which are the management discussion and analysis that Janet does. The process that we do once we finish the audit, finish the report, we send it to her for her to do the management discussion and analysis on.
And so she's looking at key things that she feels like needs to be highlighted. And those are condensed here in a narrative that makes a lot of sense. In fact, if you will, I have later on in the middle of the page there, looking at page 12. If you have your report and want to look at page 12, if you don't, I'll just highlight some things from that. You're looking at what you're going to do with new projects and your debt. On page 12, she detailed some of the things that happened during this past fiscal year and the capital projects that are in progress. So you've got the acquisition of new vehicles, Carver Park splash pad, Lark Street expansion, and then the things that are still in progress, or even the Unicoi Springs collection system rehab, the Lower Brush Creek. So there's a huge list there, and it's a good reminder to you of all the things that you've accomplished and all the things that you still have going on. So that's a very important aspect of this management discussion and analysis, to kind of give you just a quick look back and look forward of what the year really says. In the governmental financial statements, there was an increase in net position. A lot of that did have to do with a lot of the grant funding that you got. The total increase was $26 million this year. Grant money in itself increased from in the prior years, the grant expenditures that were federal grant expenditures, there again, about the middle of the page, was $10,428,000. This year it's $21,265,000. Huge increase in grant money that you got. A lot of that went to the schools. A lot of the school money went to purchase things that helped them to operate remotely. Laptops for the children, or the Chromebooks and things of that nature. So a lot of our audit time this year was spent on looking at those federal projects. There were a lot of requirements with each one of those, a lot of differences with those. I'm very pleased to say we had no findings with those grants, which was amazing, because I actually anticipated having problems and findings with those, and there were specific things we were looking for, and they handled them all very well here at the city and at the school board as well, and just really know that that was extremely time-consuming, because they were getting money awarded to them without very good guidance initially, and then having to make sure they had everything in order. But their experience with it already enabled them to make good guesses on the front end, which was very helpful. I mean, they really weren't guessing. They were using their prior experience to make good judgments. Some of the other things that you are interested in, of course, is always the debt activity. So if you want to look at the third page that I've included here, it's a summary of the outstanding debt. You were able to pay down a total in GO bonds and in the debt and the what I'm trying to say, the bonds and notes. In your bond and notes, the total payments were a little over $20 million. You did have some refunding in there, but you can see that the total debt for the end of the year for governmental funds for the bonds is $124 million, and for the business type activities was $79 million. And your legal debt margin, which is shown in the audit report, is $210 million. So you are still in good shape as far as your debt limits. Capital assets, we mentioned just a little bit with the projects that went on during the year. That roll forward activity is in the report on page 83 and 84. There's also a summary back in that management discussion and analysis that I mentioned on page 13, which shows your debt and shows your capital assets. Just a quick summary of those to give you an overview of what you have. Your report on internal controls over financial reporting and over compliance, and the grant reporting, the one over the grants, as I already said, we had absolutely no findings, nothing reported on that at all. We only had 2 small significant deficiencies. We had no material weaknesses. These were not repeat ones, and I don't anticipate they'll be on there again. There was an issue with some Johnson City food service inventory. Again, I think that was because of a lot of the changes with COVID and everything, not something we typically see as a problem for them, and I don't anticipate it being a problem again. And there was a little bit behind with bank reconciliations, but it's something they certainly know how to do and do well. There was just a lot of things going on with the software conversion and the grants that didn't rise to the top, but I don't anticipate that being an issue in the future either. One thing you might notice on here, as you get near the end of the report, on this summary page, I've detailed again some of the grants that we had to look at this year, partly because of new monies. Typically, we may only have 2 or 3 clusters that we have to really detail audit. We're always looking at them from an analytical standpoint. But this year, there was a huge list. The transit cluster, the special education cluster, just a huge list of grants that we did look at in a lot more detail. If you want to look at the second page of this summary, I have just detailed what the revenues and expenditures in total for your governmental activities, expenses for your governmental activities and business type activities are. These do match what's in the report, but again, this gives you just a snapshot of it. And you can see that prior period restatement, which I've already mentioned to you, was the internal school activity funds, leaving you a net position of everything for the city of $385 million. If you have specific questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. I know Joe really wants to go through every page, but I didn't.
I'll do that on my own time.
If
I
you'll do
won't
that on
drag
your
the
own time, I
others
would really
through
appreciate that. That would be great. That would be great.
Are there questions for Ms. McMurray? This is probably the most consequential presentation we see. You know, it's everything, all in 300 pages and no questions. All right. Well, we thank you.
Well, you look at financial information every month, and you have workshops and look at information every month. So I feel like all I need to tell you are the things different than what you might be looking at already. So if
thank
there are
you.
questions on those, I'll be glad to answer them. But I appreciate the diligence that you all put into looking at it monthly. That helps a great deal.
I think there's a message to our citizens in terms of the strength with which their governments run.
Right.
Janet, thank you to you and your team and to Bob Wilson and all the administrations who've, they kind of keep us on task and moving forward. So anyway, thank you all so much. And we encourage the citizens, if they want to see the audit,
That's right.
to
It's
get a
also
copy of it.
on the state's website as well. They can go in under the reporting system for the state and pull it down and look at it. So
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would also like to echo Commissioner Brock in terms of the effort on the part of staff. This has been a couple of really challenging years in terms of receiving grants and not getting a lot of guidance around them. And I have to say, Janet, that your team has done an incredible job, and I also appreciate Karen working with you and, you leading me through it as well, and the way you deliver it. We appreciate the fact that you are watching over it. But a huge shout out to Bob and to Janet for your hard work and all the other staff on this.
Thank all of you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
Next is our consent agenda, and I'll start with Commissioner Murphy. Do you have items you wish to see pulled?
I didn't think you were going to call on me first.
That's why I do that on purpose. I look to see who's the least prepared.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor.
I have none.
All right. Commissioner Hunter,
No.
Commissioner.
I'm going to have to be the only one, my goodness. 6.1.3, and that's really kind of an update on Buffalo Valley, and I see Mr. Penzilla.
Is that the
here
only
to
one
do
that you have to pull?
Well, I have the other one on the Greyhound bus line. I guess my question on that was just what's the length of the term of that lease?
2 years.
2 years, okay, thank you. I
All right,
missed that.
so the only item, I guess, that we're pulling is 6.1.3,
That's good.
which is the consider approval of a contract modification. This pertains to Barge Solutions and Buffalo Valley Stream Bank mitigation.
We thought we had submitted all the paperwork. They did, Army Corps and TDEC indicated that Unicoi, the town of Unicoi, had some say in whether or not we could do what we wanted to do, which we thought a no-rise certificate would be sufficient. Their regulations require the CLOMAR and LOMAR, which is a notice of map revision, and that's what is the subject of the change order. And then we have one other item that will finish up tomorrow, and that's to check the E. coli of Buffalo Creek. Once that's done, everything is done, and we'll just wait for their final approval.
And that might be
It's the state.
2 months.
a year or two.
2 months,
I
you say?
hope 2 months. I mean, they've seen everything. What else they could ask?
And so at that point, what would we have? Would it be their kind of final approval that we could stream bank, or where does that
Right.
put us in 2 months?
That would give us an indication of what, we can tell you what the revenue stream would be once we complete construction. And our plan is to construct it in-house. That keeps our costs down. And you've probably been advised the net revenue, we estimate around 2 million.
But so in 2 months, we would have potentially the approval to begin the construction of the mitigation that you would look right
So
now to
we
do
would-
in-house. And then it's only when that construction's done that you're able to begin to sell the credits, or is that the right
Sell
term?
the credits, 20% eligible per year for 5 years.
Okay, and we don't think, once we have them to sell, we don't envision having trouble finding a buyer? I mean, is there?
Typically, TDOT's been the one who's bought it, so we don't know if that still holds true. I'm not clear as to whether or not they restricted the sale to projects that occur in the region. So I'm not sure what the boundaries are.
Okay.
And before the credits can be sold, the whole project has to be complete, or can you complete it and sell as you go?
We can complete it and sell as you go, but our intention is just move in and move out.
Cool.
Do we have, as a project, capital project, do we have some money in this year's budget? I think I've been seeing it kind of move along.
Yes, in the stormwater fund is
Okay.
where we budgeted.
Do you know how long your project will take to finish it once they give you clearance?
Not greater than 6 months. What we're trying to do is schedule 4 major projects per year. Having trouble hiring people, but if that's not an issue, do 4. And so that's the subject of the discussion during the budget process, is which 4 would those be. We have a strong idea what 2 of them would be. This one and the holding pond on Walnut Street. What the next 2 are is really a discussion.
Are there other questions for Mr. Pinzola?
Just the last thing is, before you start your construction out there, probably be a good idea to have another meeting, neighborhood meeting, just to let them know what the work's going to be like and what they can anticipate to see.
I would bring donuts.
Right, we also get inquiries, if people have inquiries about the purchase of what balance of property that we're not disturbing. We're open to that, and we have had discussions with people so that you could sell off portions of the property if you wanted to.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Phil.
Great, thank you. So that was the only item from the consent agenda. Is the commission ready to take action on the whole of the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion we approve.
We have a motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll on approving the consent agenda.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. That brings us to ordinance 48 01-22. This is on first reading. An ordinance to revise Title 1, Chapter 1 of the Code of the City of Johnson City to adopt a new city seal and emblem.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. We have a new city seal for your consideration. You can see here the current one that was adopted in 1976 could use a little refresh. And more importantly, the current version keeps all graphic representations of the city in line with and consistent with our brand. So I think the picture can probably do a lot better job than I can. I'll stop there and entertain questions.
Can Commissioner Hunter keep the plaque that hangs behind us? I know he's
That will
very
be retired in
attached.
some ceremonial fashion
Okay.
once this
All
is
right.
passed.
This is a hard choice here.
So are there questions for Ms. Sharon
involved with this?
on the item? So we'll see this on 3 readings.
Yes, sir.
Is there any further conversation, or is there a motion?
How will it be introduced? I mean, we have things like manhole covers that have the seal on it.
I think you mean personhole.
But, so they'll be introduced as things are being replaced?
Yes, ma'am.
That's the way it will work?
Yes, ma'am. And most instances of this seal have gone away already with the brand. You know, the previous logo was used interchangeably a lot with this seal. So there are not that many instances of this one still
I believe
hanging
the
on.
dumpster at my house has the new logo on it. I believe those have been changed.
I move for approval.
We have a motion to approve and a second from Commissioner Hunter. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Now we have consider a request to proceed with the annexation of 2.33 acres at 1493 Becky Drive.
Good evening, Commissioners. In front of you, I have the voluntary annexation of 2.3 acres at 1493 Becky Drive. And I first just want to start off, I know that this was something that I really hit hard on last annexation because we were doing things a little bit differently. And we took some of the feedback and we've actually tweaked it just a little bit again. So going back over our policy steps and timeline, again, we have the request to proceed, which is where we are tonight. And then at the next meeting, Planning Commission, they're going to hear and make a recommendation on the plan of services and the zoning assignment. Following that, it will come back to City Commission. Again, this is all the same up at this point. Preliminary resolution, which will call for a public hearing, and then the first reading of the zoning assignment. Now, this is where things start to change. On March 3rd, you are going to hear the second reading of the zoning assignment, which is not going to be a public hearing. This is a little bit different because a typical rezoning case, as you guys know, the public hearing is going to be on that second reading. But in an effort to kind of align things a little bit better, we're actually moving the public hearing for the zoning assignment to the third and final reading, so that way it's going to align with the final resolution and the public hearing for that piece. So that way the final hearings are occurring on both nights. The zoning assignment will go into effect with the annexation, and all public hearings are occurring on the same night. So going off of that, the request is for this parcel right here. Now this is a little bit of an interesting parcel because you see that this box, which is a part of the site, is already in the city limits. So this red shaded piece out here is the piece that is being requested for annexation. So the whole territory is about 2.66 acres, and the part that they're requesting annexation is this piece right here. Now again, the annexation corresponds with the proposed plan of services, and if the request to proceed is approved, the applicant plans on seeking the RP2 zoning, which is what matches this little stub right here in the city. A little bit about the site history. This was a recent replat. So this is what the site looked like before you had the bulb-shaped plat that came in to be combined with this lot right here. And the petitioner owns both this lot that has been created where the star is and the surrounding area. The plan of services includes everything that's listed, and it has been reviewed by all applicable agencies, and it was included in your packet. And then I'm going to leave you guys with a vicinity map, and staff recommends approval for this request to proceed. And just a reminder that the request to proceed is exactly that. It is coming before the City Commission and asking if you guys are interested in the annexation of this territory so that staff can proceed with the processes.
Were there further questions for staff on the request to proceed or a motion to move
Now,
forward?
We've never really done a request to
Yeah, we did.
proceed on
Yeah,
every
last month, or
annexation?
2 month, no, 2 months ago we did on the last one.
Yes, with the Cambro and the Indian Ridge, there
I
was an
think that
initial
we haven't
request to
had
proceed.
it. That's a result of the legislative change of a year or two ago. And in the time since the legislation changed to today, we haven't done a lot of annexations. But we've seen that same kind of seemingly out of order sequence of events because
Correct,
of the
yes,
way
sir.
the meetings align at least once.
I can go back to it too.
I was just gonna say, I like the change in the process.
That
It
one.
seems more transparent
Yeah.
and easier for the general public to.
Right, I think it's gonna work out some of the tweaks that we had with our last annexation.
I would move for approval.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second? If there's further discussion, if not, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. So with that, we come to the end of our agenda. Are there, Ms. Ball, do you have anything you would like to add or report on?
So, I would point out the informational packets that are shown to you at the end of this are going to be indicators of things in the budget, such as the increase in fuel cost. I'm working with staff on trying to have drivers within the budget that we would bring to you to indicate changes. And so you're starting to see some of those happen within the current budget. And I just wanted to call that to your attention.
Are there other items? I'm going to let Commissioner Murphy know that I'm going to call on him in a minute, so he has time to think about it. As for those of us serving on other boards and commissions, are there other items to report or information you would like to share with the commission? Commissioner Murphy?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Brock and myself have been in conversation about an opportunity to serve on the Regional Planning Committee, and wanted to see how the protocol would be for me to have that opportunity to serve for a year and allow Commissioner Brock to rotate off.
I think that is a commission, so you're talking about the seat that currently Commissioner Brock sits on the Planning Commission as a representative of the City Commission, and what you're mentioning is trading that appointment.
Yes, sir.
I think procedurally, that would just be a move of the commission to identify a new, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, I think we would just be needing a motion from the commission and voting on that to switch that appointment, am I correct?
That's
Okay.
correct.
So if there's a motion to give
Want to
Commissioner
move since
Murphy
you're
the
coming off?
opportunity.
Well, if y'all recall, when it came time for one of us to serve on the Planning Commission this year, and Commissioner Murphy had just come on, so probably feeling a little bit overwhelmed, I said I would take the seat, since I had served before, but would be on the Planning Commission until we could do something else, and I think this is the something else. I think it's a great opportunity for Commissioner Murphy. We all know who have served on the Planning Commission, that's where you get your wings, so to speak. And so I would gladly give him the seat, for sure.
So is that a motion?
That is a
We have a
motion.
motion from Commissioner Brock.
I will second it.
And a second from the Vice Mayor.
As
If-
a matter of procedure, we need to add it to the agenda.
That is
I'm
right.
sorry.
Commissioner Hunter, would you make a motion
I'll
to
make a
add this
motion
to
to
the
add.
agenda? There's a motion. Commissioner Murphy, would you second that?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to add it to the agenda. Do you need a roll call for that?
Yes,
All right.
please. Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. So if it's still agreeable, Commissioner Brock and Vice Mayor, your motion to
Second.
appoint
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy. If there's no further discussion, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Commissioner Murphy, I know sometimes I'm on your prayer list. This time you're on mine. But yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
As one of the three of us here who have served on the Planning Commission, I wish you well. No, it's great. And it is a really important function, and it really deals with a very specific range of city business. it will be helpful to any commissioner to serve in that role. So I would wholeheartedly support that and say yes.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add? Any other committees you want to volunteer for
I am going-
while you're?
Yeah, I'm going to commit for a year at the Regional Planning Commission, and then I would like to pursue the animal shelter, animal control board at some point. I know John would like Bright Ridge at some point. He's expressed that, so those are some things I just wanted to share.
Could the minutes be recorded to reflect Commissioner Murphy's interest in the Animal Control Board? Just
To make sure we remind him of that at some point in time in the future.
thank you. The comments noted, sir.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor, do you have anything?
Commissioner Brock and I both went to the CVB meeting last week, which is excellent as far as how Johnson City is being perceived by people outside of our area and how many hits on different things that they had. The Christmas trees probably was the biggest explosion of internet, TV, magazines, everything, newspaper articles and things about that gave us a lot of publicity. So buying 150-something trees was worth every dime, and it was worth it to our citizens and the people from Michigan and Chicago that visited and places like that people showed up to see them that I couldn't imagine that they were doing it, but they were here. So that's a great thing. We probably ought to continue doing that tradition of Christmas trees in the parks downtown. I have one more thing, not that related, but the game tomorrow night between the Science Hill and Dobbins Bennett boys at 8 o'clock is probably for the conference championship, because Science Hill has one defeat, and that was at Dobbins Bennett, and Dobbins Bennett has 0, and they're coming to Science Hill to play. So it will be a packed game tomorrow night, but worthwhile going to for our community. So
Thank you, sir.
you're welcome.
Commissioner Hunter?
I just wanted to highlight that the city's transportation planning organization is redoing their long-range plan and offering input from community through a survey online. So encourage people to be a part of that as we look to improve transportation in the city over the long term. And then personally, I had an interaction with city staff last night, actually. That was completely unexpected. There was an irresponsible driver that I've never witnessed an accident in person that flipped his car, so I called 911, and police showed up. I mean, extremely quick and professional, and took care of the situation. And I was really impressed with Chief Turner's police department and what they did last night. That's it. I don't know how he made it out alive, but yeah, he came out. Okay.
I'll just add on to the Vice Mayor's comments on the CVB. The Visitor Center is coming along very nicely. Randy Trivet, of course, is leading that charge and getting that place redone, and we're so excited about it. I think it's just going to be, it will be the front porch of the city. It will be a place that we can be really proud of, and I think all the plans are it's going to have a wow factor when people walk in, so it's good to see that.
Thank you. I think that is all we have. So if there's nothing further, we will stand adjourned.